So Jimmy Kimmel, first Kimmel goes on and he talks about his son who has his baby son had to have open heart surgery, and he cries, and it's very moving. But he uses this event to sell Obamacare, right? We need Obamacare because I'm not sure what the logic was there. Oh, because some people don't have insurance. Not everybody's making $35 million a year like Jimmy Kimmel is. So he cries, and it's like, oh, now we need Obamacare because he's crying. And by the way, obviously, we all hope and pray that Jimmy Kimmel's son is all right. Ben Shapiro's daughter, I think it was, had the exact same operation with the exact same doctor. Ben Shapiro is not for Obamacare. Ben Shapiro would like, so it's actually your emotions don't actually mean anything. Even though you have emotions, even though we have tragedies in our lives, that doesn't make us specialists in what kind of health care is best for America. So when that didn't work, and the Republicans are still trying to repeal, or they're not going to repeal it, they're going to change Obamacare, move some of the funding to the states, which hopefully would let the laboratory of federalism do good work and change the way this collapsing law will be administrated. So then he goes on, he starts hectoring you. We played that yesterday. Instead of doing his monologue, he's just sitting there screaming at people about the Republicans. It's just like that. That's what we want after a long day, is we want to see a late night comedian come on and scream at us about, what he thinks is the healthcare should be. So now Brian Kilmeade, the guy on Fox and Friends, comes out and says fairly mildly, he says, this is the Hollywood elite. They're always pushing this thing, the Hollywood elite always want, even though they're not watching the Emmy. Now, here is Jimmy Kimmel's response to Brian Kilmeade.
And the reason I found this comment to be particularly annoying is because this is a guy, Brian Kilmeade, who whenever I see him, kisses my ass like a little boy meeting Batman. Oh, he's such a fan. I think he's been to the show. He follows me on Twitter. He asked me to write a blurb for his book, which I did. He calls my agent looking for projects. He's dying to be a member of the Hollywood elite. The only reason he's not a member of the Hollywood elite is because nobody will hire him to be one. And the reason I'm talking about this is because my son had an open heart surgery and has to have 2 more. And because of that, I learned that there are kids with no insurance in the same situation. I don't get anything out of this, Brian, you phony little creep. Oh, I'll pound you when I see you. That is my blurb.
Stop the hammering.
That's Kimmel going off saying, I'll pound you when I see you. And the audience is applauding for this. He's threatening this guy basically for criticizing him. And the audience is applauding. Yeah, pound this guy. He said something, he disagreed with you. You got to pound this guy. So just before I get on to this, I want to let Brian Kilmeade respond, because he responded to all those charges on his show. Have we got Kilmeade?
Hope your son gets better. I hope your son gets all the care he needs. I'm glad you're interested. You're causing you're doing a great job bringing the dialogue out, but you should actually do what we're doing. Talk to the people that wrote it. Yeah, Senator Graham, Senator Cassidy, asking tough questions to Michael, and we'll see where we go from here. About me and you personally, yeah, I did this thing called Request an Interview for an up-and-coming talk show host who did a great job on Fox Sports. And even when you weren't getting great ratings, I thought you and the show was excellent. When I was at American Idol across the street at the finale, I walked over at least 2 years, maybe 3 years, and you were kind enough to give an interview to me. I thought the pieces went great. I didn't kiss your butt. I thought you did a good job, and I thought I'd highlight behind the scenes on an up-and-coming talk show. As you trying to get you to blurb the book, a little mistaken. I actually tried to get you in this book in 2003. It's How You Play the Game. The games do count. 2 books back to back. I wanted to focus on people in sports and how it helped them later on in life.
So there's Kilmeade answering this. But the thing is, no matter what he said, it wasn't like hate speech. It wasn't like, it wasn't like he was screaming at Jimmy Kimmel. He said, this guy is a Hollywood elite and he's pushing this thing on us. And Kimmel responds with basically a threat of violence. I'm not saying it's an actual real threat of violence, but it's pretty real. I'm going to pound this guy, and the audience applauds. I just want to point out, obviously, Jimmy Kimmel is not the biggest story in the world. But this is the left in a nutshell. This is the pattern of the left. First, they come out with their sob story. And there are sob stories in the world. There are real sob stories. But the answer to every sob story is not more government. The answer to every sob story is not we get to take this segment of your life over, and we now get to control your life. Because when the government takes over healthcare, as you see everywhere it has been done, they get to control your healthcare. They get to say, well, you did this, so we don't have to give, you're too old for healthcare. They get death panels, basically. They get to say, you are not going to, we're not going to give you any more healthcare because the state can't afford it. So they have that power. Everything they give you comes at a price. So they start with the emotionalism. When people don't buy into the emotionalism, when that doesn't stop the train, excuse me, they start to hector you. You know, it's like, what's wrong? You know, you're a climate denier, you're a this denier, you're that, you're a racist, you're this. When that doesn't work, they threaten you with violence. And this is, you know, this is like Antifa. When they can't silence, I'm sorry, I'm choking to death. It's the hammering. It's all the hammering that's bothering me.
Stop the hammering.
It's like, yeah. You know, guy needs to calm down. I think he needs a little single nostril breathing.
But you know, you do hold, and you breathe through one, and you hold it, and then you exhale through the other, and you keep going.
Never mind. You know, it's like Antifa. When they can't stop people, when they start with, oh, the poor this, oh, the poor minorities, oh, the poor women, oh, the poor this. And when people say, yeah, but, you know, really, they have to take care of themselves just like everybody else, then they start to hector you. You know, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're this, you're that. When that doesn't work, Antifa turns up and beats you up. When people like Ben Shapiro still turn up on campus and make their speeches, Antifa shows up. There was a poll recently, 51% of students, of college students, agree that it's all right to shout down speakers. 20% say it's okay to commit violence in response to words. And 44% say hate speech isn't protected by the First Amendment. I mean, they actually don't know what they're talking about. So they're not just angry and violent, they're actually ignorant. So why is it like this? It's like this because the things they do don't work, and the things they do strip the power of the people. They're unconstitutional almost always. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives the government the right to take over our health care, to take over our insurance market like this. You know, the insurance market bought into this because basically they said, we're going to force people to buy your product, and so it'll be great. But of course, it's not great because they covered pre-existing conditions. This is the whole problem with Kimmel's argument, by the way, is that the reason people don't have health insurance is they don't get health insurance when they're healthy. When your wife is pregnant, you insure the baby. You know, you shouldn't go into parenthood without being insured for catastrophic illnesses. So, you know, Obama has destroyed the insurance market. He's taken it over. This is what this is fascism. Communism is where the state runs everything. Fascism is where they let the company run things, but they tell it what to do. And so when things go wrong, the company gets the blame, but the company really has no freedom. And that's why people are pulling out of this all over the place. So when people will not allow their fantasy to continue, they get violent. That is the way this works. I just, before we get to stuff I like, I just want to add one more thing about what I was talking about before, that so much of what happens on the left is about the fact that what the stuff that they're saying isn't true. And that not only is it not true, but they don't care that it's not true, and they just don't want to be interrupted. It's like, don't interrupt me while I'm lying, you know? And there's a new study now that shows that global warming is happening much more slowly than they thought it was, okay? Now they're selling this as, oh, this means we have more time to implement the Paris Accord and it'll work. But what really the story is that their computer models were way, way off. And they're selling this whole story as if like, oh, you know, this gives us more time. But really, it seems to me that like the scientists themselves are saying, well, yeah, you know, our computer models were really just a kind of amalgam of different models and kind of an average and all this stuff. And now we're kind of changing our mind. One scientist said, we haven't seen that rapid acceleration in warming after 2000 that we see in the models. We haven't seen that in observations. Another scientist said, when the facts change, I change my mind. And, you know, they're still obviously selling it, and the climate is changing. We know it's changing. We know that we all want there to be less pollution. That's always a good thing. But the panic and the basic selling of left-wing politics, of the government taking over oil supplies, taking over energy supplies, all that stuff that has been used to panic. And when you don't buy it, first they start with the emotion, we're all going to die. Then they start with the hectoring, you're a climate denier. And finally, they get around to just punching you in the face. It's the Jimmy Kimmel party. Jimmy Kimmel is just exemplifying the entire party. All right.